This is the Trinity. And what the important part about this that I want you to understand is that God is relational. Within himself, he is relational. And I want you to see in verse 27, he made human beings in his own image. We are relational to the core. As part of God's creation, we bear this relational mark. I honestly believe in humanity that loneliness is one of the cruelest crosses to bear. And in our culture, loneliness is becoming an epidemic. We have 2,000 friends on social media, and not one of them would come to us in a genuine need. Friendship has become almost meaningless in this new age of disconnectedness, but we have to have this level of relational connection because we are relational beings. Isn't it interesting that solitary confinement is considered one of our cruelest punishments in the prison system? We recognize this. We recognize that we are relational beings, and if we cut one of us out of all relationships, that is punishment. We can punish one another by cutting someone out of our relational network. We punish others in a church if we form a little clique and we say no one else is allowed in our group. We are created to be relational. We are created to belong. And in this story, God has created you to know him, to delight in him, to be satisfied in him, to rest in him. And you need to understand that because you belong to God in this special way, that you are never alone. You are not alone. You are not an orphan. You have not been forgotten. And I think it's really important for us to understand that we belong to God, and until we make that meaningful connection, we will wrestle with finding fulfillment in this life. Now here's something I want you, because some of you are lonely in this room, and you wouldn't be able to tell who they are just by looking at their faces. That person looks lonely, or that person. That's not how that works. You can be very connected and yet be completely lonely. You can be married and you can be lonely. Loneliness creeps out in all different forms. But I want you to understand that your need for relationship is settled completely in your relationship with God. And if you try to solve the problem of loneliness with people first, you will place people in a position that God intended to be in your life. Now, if any of you have ever been in the sorry position where every single relationship has been broken or abandoned and you are all alone, but in that sorry position, God has reached down into your life and he has drawn close to you and he has whispered to your heart, you might feel alone, but I am here. You're not alone. And if you've been in that sorry position but learned the valuable truth that if you are loved by God, you will never be alone, at that moment you begin to build an inner strength within you where you will not become isolated. Even if you're in a very isolated position, even if you feel very, very lonely, you're going to understand that because you belong to this special relationship and you've been created in this unique way to be in fellowship with God. Read the prayer, the high priestly prayer of Jesus in John 17. He wants us to be connected to God in the same way he is. God has created us to be in relationship with him. And once that satisfies your need for a relationship, then you can form such healthy relationships with people because you're not demanding that they be the source that satisfies that inner need to belong somewhere, to belong to someone, to be satisfied. If you can find that in God first, you will have such healthy relationships everywhere else. But if you try to get that from a spouse, you try to get that from a friend, you try to get that from social media, it will break. It'll be dysfunctional. It'll be ugly. It'll be manipulative, and it won't satisfy the inner urge of the heart to belong to something so deeply. You're meant to be a part of this story. And you're meant to be a part of this relationship with God because He created you after His own image. I want to speak to those of you who struggle with this tonight, because if you can grasp this and begin taking steps towards this place of health, then the human relationships will come in such a more healthy place. In fact, if you're lonely and you don't have this life-giving relationship with God where your loneliness is being satisfied, you'll start taking from people. Rather than in your relationship there being this giving on both sides, if you're really lonely and you're not satisfied in God, you may even begin to push people away because of the need is so great. You'll cling to someone and you'll pull. And if you've ever been around someone like that, some of the first things you do is you're like, well, okay, whoa, easy there. I don't want to be that close. But if you can come into a relationship and say, relationally, I'm already fully satisfied. What a blessing that is to your spouse. What a blessing that is to your friends. You won't be needy because God will be satisfying the needs that you have, that He placed in you with purpose. That need, that loneliness, that draw, that need to belong that you have is meant to be pushed in that direction. It's supposed to connect your heart to the Lord's first. And then, of course, He wants us to be in community just as He is in community. We are a reflection of who God is.